Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing a player that I think will be so key to everything that Rob Edwards will do with this Wolves side going forward. I think it is going to be so exciting to see if he can unlock this player, and I really do hope you do enjoy this video. Now, before we get into it, there are 67% of you who watch these videos who aren't subscribed already, so I'd very much appreciate it if you could click the subscribe button below. It would be absolutely incredible to reach 2,800 subscribers. The support on my channel recently has been absolutely out of this world, so thank you all for that. Also, if you do enjoy it, please like it and comment below what you think about the video itself, so let me know how I can improve as well. So let's get straight into this one, and I hope you all enjoy. Now, the player we're going to be discussing in this video is Fer Lopez, a player that I've been absolutely crying out for to start more games of football for Wolves. He's only started once this season, and he did get an assist in that game as well. Now, it's really frustrating to watch because the talent is clearly there, and for me, he is one of them players that does feel like a Vitinha, really, where he came into Wolves. Obviously, Vitinha was on loan, so the circumstances were slightly different, but he comes into the team as a young player that is getting limited minutes, not really getting his chance to impact things on the pitch. And then ultimately, he's not played enough and he's gone on to be a star. So I think it's going to be so interesting to see if Fer Lopez can be utilised in the remaining 27 games of this season, because it is absolutely massive for him to get more minutes for not only his development, but also for Wolves to try and justify the €25 million price tag that they spent on him, which I did think was extortionate at the time, given the fact that he had little senior experience. As you can see, 20 games professionally for Celta Vigo, not many of them starts either, so it was a massive risk at the time. But I do think it's one of them that is going to pay off if they can unlock him this season. Now, 116 minutes played across all competitions this season. I mean, across in the Premier League this season, it's just quite frankly not good enough, really, is it? And yeah, you could argue that he hasn't deserved it because he hasn't maybe impacted as much as some people would like, but I think he's actually been very hard done by. And I think when you actually look at the in-depth statistics behind Fer Lopez's performances, I actually think they're very impressive and something that really Wolves are lacking in a player this season. They're lacking that player that can unlock the door, that player that can find a slide rule pass, the player that can pick a hole in a defence, a player that can find someone with a good bit of service. Because let's be honest, as bad as Strand Larsen has been, or as much as people are getting frustrated with him, the bloke's had no service. You look at the one game where he's had a real, even then he didn't have so much service, I suppose, but the cross from Jackson to Chua against West Ham, obviously scores 2 goals in that game, but really since then he hasn't taken off, and I think it's not all down to him being a bad footballer. I think the lack of service is there as well, and I do think Fer Lopez would provide that. But let's look a bit more into the in-depth stats and why I believe Fer Lopez will be brilliant under Rob Edwards if he is playing. Now, as you can see here, according to his FBF scouting report, I think it's very important that we look at these because he is one of these players that is so good in the pockets. And I think Fer Lopez is one of these players that gets tarred with that brush of the stereotypes that Spanish players have, where they're not necessarily the most athletic, they're not, working hard off the ball. In this day and age, we've seen so many players that are being continuously disrespected, to be honest, with the likes of Mesut Ozil, for example, a player that never really did much off the ball, but ultimately was an unbelievable footballer, and people say that he wouldn't survive in the modern game, which is absolutely ludicrous. But moving away from that, I think Fer Lopez does get tarred with that brush a bit, where it doesn't feel like he is a great presser and stuff like that. But if you actually look here, he's got 1.25 blocks per 90 this season. Obviously, that's based on players who've played 791 minutes this season across the Big Five leagues, including the UEFA Champions League and the Europa League as well. Now, I think that's very interesting because it shows that he does have the work rate, and of course, it also shows that Wolves are under the cosh a hell of a lot. But then when you also look at other statistics that really impress me here. Now, as you can see here, he has 2.28 successful take-ons per 90. Now, there's so many players in this Wolves team that can't beat a man. I think Jackson to Chua is one of them. He really frustrates me on that right-hand side. I think if you were to have Chua overlapping a player like Fer Lopez, I really do think it would work. I think John Arias hasn't worked out on that right-hand side, and that's why it surprised me so much that Fer Lopez hasn't been given more minutes, given the fact that John Arias has, quite frankly, been poor this season, barring the Spurs game, really. So Wolves need a player that can get the ball in those pockets, that can take a man on, isn't afraid to try and beat a man, make something happen. And Fer Lopez absolutely does have that in abundance. And that's one thing that really does surprise me as to why he hasn't been given any more minutes this season. But then I'm really intrigued by this as well. Now, in games, I think it's very, very frustrating that, there's players in this Wolves side that don't keep the ball well enough, in my opinion. I think Andre and Joao Gomez, I don't think you can tar them with that brush. I think in terms of the forward line, I think Hwang gives the ball away a hell of a lot, is very wasteful. I think Marshall Monetzi is a very, very similar player. I think Jean-Marc Bellegarde, again, gives the ball away too much for my liking. And then also, Jorgen Strand Larsen does give the ball away far too much this season. So I want to see players that, completing their passes, and as much as it might seem a little statistic, I think 82.7% pass accuracy, pass completion, putting in the top 11% of performers across Europe this season who's played 791 minutes, I think is big, and I do think Wolves need players who can hold on to the ball a bit better. But of course, the most important one in this for me, and something that I always put a lot of stock in, is this. 6.49 progressive passes per 90. Now, of course, this is the last 365 days, so this will be taken into account some of his Celta Vigo minutes as well. But again, it shows that he is a player that wants to get the ball forward. And for me, I think when you've got the likes of Joao Gomez and Andre in that midfield, I think you need a player that is a progressive passer. Joao Gomez is a progressive runner. He's a ball carrier. He isn't afraid to carry the ball into the final third and lay it off and give it to players to let them do the magic. But I think if you combine them two with a player like Fer Lopez that could play in and around them or just in front of them, I think that would make a massive difference to Wolves. I think because you would have Joao Gomez covering less ground, leading to him actually getting less tired as well, of course. But the fact that Fer Lopez wants to play those risky passes, wants to try things, and can unlock the door, I think is massive. And there's a few reasons why I think Rob Edwards was absolutely love him. So we're just going to break it down tactically really quickly as well. And this is how I predict Rob Edwards to line up. If you have seen my video yesterday, you will also know this as well. But this is how I predict Wolves to line up. Now, I do think it'll be very interesting to see if they do set up this way, of course, under Rob Edwards. But I think there's so much room for change and adaptation in this team, and I do think Fer Lopez offers that. Now, I think Hwang is the one for me, as I said in numerous videos. I wouldn't have him there. Do I think Rob Edwards will have him there? Probably. I genuinely believe that. I think he'll be one of them players that I think he will look to work with, and if Hwang Hee-chan can get fiery, there's 10 goals a season there. I don't think that's going to happen personally. I think there's more chance of me becoming anorexic, to be quite honest with you. But, at the end of the day, yeah, I think he might utilise him. But ultimately, this video is about the man on the right-hand side, of course. So I do think it's Fer Lopez. I do think he should play. Now, in situational play, let's just say we're going to have the likes of Bueno up here very high. We're going to have Tachua up here very high, or whoever plays on that right-hand side. Then, of course, we're going to have Larsen in and around the mixer. We're going to have Hwang Hee-chan, a player that wants to come in on his right foot, and Fer Lopez, a player that wants to cut inside on his left foot. We're going to, of course, have Joao Gomez a bit more advanced and Andre sitting as well, somewhere around here probably. But this is how I expect him to line up roughly. Now, I think it's going to be very interesting because, like I say, Fer Lopez is a player that wants the ball in those areas. He really does want it. He wants to receive it there. That's his area. That is his place. That's where he wants to get the ball. He wants it in and around there. But how is that going to work in this Wolves side? Well, you want Jackson Tachua really doing this job. That is exactly what you want. Whether his delivery is good enough or not, I don't personally believe so, but I do think we could see a hell of a lot of sort of cutbacks to Fer Lopez here and allowing him to get that ball into Larsen there, or even back out to Joao Gomez and work another chance, or he could even have the option, of course, to go to Hwang, who could get a shot off perhaps directly on goal. So I think there's a lot of really interesting ways that Wolves could play this going into next season. But for me, I think that's the most important sort of system for Wolves to go forward. Now, of course, there are a few ways as well that I want to break down quickly too. Of course, we could see the likes of Strand Larsen up here. We could see Bellegarde perhaps on this opposite side, as we have seen numerous times. And then we could see the likes of Fer Lopez coming in and playing on that opposite side. And we know that Bellegarde can interchange as well. I personally wouldn't risk playing Fer Lopez on the same side as his foot is, to be honest. But that's just how I would see it. I think you could see Bellegarde up there. I think there's plenty of players you could see on that left-hand side. You could even explore the likes of Jean Arias, of course. You could explore the likes of Matheus Mane if you really wanted to. I know Rob Edwards likes his youth players. So you could see any of them really on that left-hand side along with Hwang Hee-chan. So either way, I think all of those players want to cut in on their right foot. Jean Arias has been known to. Matheus Mane absolutely wants to, does it so consistently in the lower levels. And I do think if you see him at senior level, he'll want to do that. He looked like he wanted to do it against Chelsea. But Fer Lopez is the anomaly because he wants to be picking up the ball in those pockets, making things happen 20, 25 yards from goal. And Jorgen Strand Larsen wants to be in here. And then whoever of these three you want up there, whichever one it is in this position, You know, they're all going to want to be high up. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it does line up going into next season. But Fer Lopez, for me, is so crucial to how Wolves are going to play and how they should play, looking forward to this sort of system, really. I think he would suit the 4-2-3-1 system that Rob deployed at Middlesbrough. I think he'd suit the 3-4-3 system that he deployed at Luton as well. As I said in yesterday's video, Hugo Bueno, very, very, very similar to Alfie Doughty at Luton. Chachua, very similar to Issa Kabore, a player that was pretty much just an athlete, not a technically brilliant footballer, but again, very athletic and wants to get on the overlap with regards to his attacking midfielder or his direct winger up next to him. And then, of course, Bueno wants to be high. So I do think there's a lot of options that Wolves have got next season. But Fer Lopez in this pocket for me, I think Wolves are crying out for him. I know that sounds desperate, given the fact that people don't think he's good enough. For me, I think he is, and I think he'd be absolutely crucial to everything that Rob Edwards would do well if he was to utilise him. So it's worth taking a risk on for me. I think Wolves could do far worse than throwing the dice, let's be completely frank. I think they need players creating things. As much as Wolves do concede goals, and I think they will stop conceding goals, they have to. If they want to stay in this division, they have to simply stop conceding goals. But they need to start scoring some, and I don't see how you can keep playing the same players each week. And of course, you could say that, you know, a new manager's coming in, these players could perform differently. You know, they've got to fight for their shirt again, ultimately, as well, which a bit of competition is always healthy in the forward line. But for me, I think Fer Lopez is the one that comfortably, for me, gets in this side with regards to how I think Wolves are going to play and how I think Rob Edwards will set up. So Fer Lopez is the key. He is the diamond in the rough, in my personal opinion, on that subs bench. And he is the player that I believe can change the fortunes of Wolves and Rob Edwards if he is utilised properly this season. Fer Lopez is also excellent with his back to play, a player that can really affect things, get on the ball, half turn. He's excellent on the half turn, a player that I think is going to be so useful for Wolves, as I've said numerous times. But if you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel. As I say, it is free and we are very close to 2,800 subscribers on the channel. The support has been incredible and I really do thank you all for that. YouTube is something that I really want to pursue and, you know, delve into further. So if you could pursue it, help me pursue my dream of reaching that, you know, 3,000 subscriber goal would be incredible, really. But even that 2,800 goal would be absolutely incredible. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you do enjoy the tactical analysis videos. There'll be more of them coming on the channel throughout the international break. We're going to be posting a video every single day without fail. That is my promise to you this international break. I know that the international break content is very rough, but we're making sure that doesn't happen over here on the Connor Talks Football YouTube channel. Thank you all for watching this video. I really do hope you did enjoy it. I hope you like this Zidane Christmas jumper as well, and I'll see you all in the next one.